Hello, chess friends. We all know that chess has the power to bring everybody together. In this game, we'll be checking out the legendary encounter between Magnus Carlsen and the Nepomniachtchi, who was his one-time world championship competitor. This then was at the Rapid and Blitz World Championships in 2024 in New York, and we all know the outcome was that they shared the Blitz World Championship. But in this game, we will see who triumphed prior to their string of draws. So let's check it out then. Magnus starts with 1 to e4. I hear lightning outside. Nepo replies with Sicilian c5, so indicating he wants to fight. Magnus then plays the elephant, which he himself was not a fan of. A couple years ago, he had tweeted about this. He doesn't like playing against it. But this time he is playing it, so let's see what happens. We have d5, e takes d, queen takes d, d4, knight to f6, knight to f3, followed by e6, knight to a3 is the most standard continuation here. Knight to a3, followed by knight to c2. This is the theme. But we just see a bishop e2, knight to c6, and castles by Carlsen. Carlsen is playing it solid. C takes, and bishop to e7. So, knight c3, very normal, standard developing move. Hitting the queen, as well as developing. So, white's asking black now, where are you going to place your queen? Right. Nepo says, I'm placing it on d6, very cozy. Carlsen goes knight to b5, gaining some more space with the knight, but this is still very much in theory. As we can see in the database, the top players have played this position countless times. So after knight to b5, the queen just slides back to d8, very Scandinavian-like. And we have bishop to f4, so obviously trying to target on c7. So let's say a slow move is played like h6. Well, now just the simple knight to c7 would win you the game because you are forking the king and the rook. All right, so if we go back then, we have knight to d5. Knight to d5 stops this knight to c7 idea as well as attacking the bishop on f4. So the bishop has to drop back. Bishop to g3 then, and now we see castles by Nepo. Carlsen just continues to try and put pressure on the c file, like trying to add more ammunition here on the c7. But bishop to d7 combats that quite nicely. It does two things. Firstly, bishop to d7 is opening up so that the rooks can connect and have more fluidity. So you generally see later maybe moves like queen b6 to connect your rooks. And as well, bishop to d7 is perhaps also eyeing this knight in a few moves time. So the knight drops back to c3, then avoiding any funny business. We have knight takes on c3 and b takes c3. Thereafter, we have queen to a5, and now move 15. This position hasn't been reached again. So yeah, either even queen c7, not queen c7, of course, the bishop would just capture. But queen b6 or a5 is perfectly fine because the plan is just to connect your rooks. Queen to a5, then we get queen to b3 by Carlsen, trying to hit on b7. Nepo just blocks it and stops it with b6. Here Carlsen goes rook f to d1, also just trying to perhaps make some space for his pawn to thrust it forward, so Carlsen playing very principled. Nepo goes queen to a3, trying to propose a queen trade, because here if you trade queen, that's fine for black, right? Black is slightly better, attacking the rook goes to b1, and your knight goes to a5, and has potential to maybe down the line end up on a nice outpost here on c4. Obviously not immediately, because the bishop is still there, but you have your own plans. Let's go back. Carlsen declines the queen trade, despite being the endgame king. He wants to trade on his terms if a trade happens, right? So this is also something you should check out in your own games, guys. Even if you know you're good at endgames, queenless endgames, uh, generally try trade when it favors you. Unless you see, okay, the trade might lead to your benefit, then do it. But most of the time we trade because it leads to ease for the side proposing the trade. So queen to b1, we have rook f to d8 then. h4 by Carlsen, maybe just saying, okay, the side doesn't seem to be much happening right now, although it can open up. But let me try and again distract my opponent and cause some trouble on the king side with this h4 move. We have rook 8 to c8 now, and now Carlsen is threatening checkmate with knight g5, just a simple queen h7, or not checkmate, but mate in 2. Let's say a6 is played, we just get the simple mate in 2, queen to h7, king to f8, and queen to h8. Checkmate. The bishop is blocking the king's exit here. So, this is one thing about the Sicilian, right? It is a very, can be a very safe, strong defensive opening, but can also easily get you cramped up in such cases, right? As we can see here, Nepo seems kind of boxed away optically, but it's still fine for him, right? But he needs to play more precisely. We get this bishop to g5, then stopping this mate idea, and Carlsen says h takes g. Now we might think, okay, why is Carlsen doing this? He's doubling his pawns. What is he trying to achieve? It just doesn't look nice, you know. But Nepo has to find some crazy moves like queen a4 to hit this, because he plays knight to e7. But let's say he played like a natural looking move, maybe f6. Well, now suddenly you're opening up your king's line, right? And although this isn't losing on the spot, positionally you're making it hard for yourself. c4 is perhaps setting up ideas of rook d3, preparing a rook lift, and hitting the queen at the same time. You can imagine all sorts of ideas coming alive here, maybe even bishop d3 with threats there. If this comes, maybe you make space for your bishop to maybe thrust the g4. A lot of possibilities, right? Or even if you go h6, I think that's also just as bad. If you do that, it's going from bad to worse here. You're opening up bishop h4, and I don't even think bishop h4 is the main problem. The big threat here is this rook move, or setting up, blocking this move. The king may be getting to dark squares, and also preventing king to going to e7. But here you're expecting the rook lifts. There's the rook lift. So this is a theme we have to watch out for. Another option here, if you try and go g6, not as bad, but also not good, man. You're making holes in your structure, you're poking it, making weaknesses, right? And c4 again is the idea with c4 into rook lift up with tempi. So we get bishop takes g5, h takes g, and knight to e7. Nepo distracts and doesn't worry about any pawn push on his king side, knowing that it could lead to him being vulnerable. Okay, knight to e7, we get c4 by Carlsen, which shows great positional understanding, because now the plan is to lift the rook. This is the natural plan here. Nepo then eludes and this whole idea and slides his queen back to a5, which is what maybe should have been done a move earlier instead of knight to e7. But nonetheless, queen to a5 seems decent. But if you notice, it kind of looks like this queen is in an awkward position. Kind of seems a bit misplaced, right? Where's your queen really going to from here? If let's say Carlsen could execute, like, let's say, for instance, here, maybe a bishop to d2 idea, well, your queen is nearly trapped there, you know, not a lot of squares to go to. So let's see what happens. Queen a5, we get bishop to f4. Carlsen just defending the g5 pawn by going bishop to f4. Nepo goes bishop to a4. Still okay for black. He can still play it. And now Carlsen does this natural looking rook lift. Rook to d3. And Nepo finds a very resourceful move of queen to f5, right? Because let's say Carlsen just goes rook to f3. Well, we just trade queens, right? And black slightly better, being upper pawn, right? After rook takes on d4. But instead of, let me show you that line quickly. So rook to f3, queen takes on b1, rook takes, and rook to d4. This is the idea, right? And Carlsen has to play some strange moves, moving the bishop back to its starting square. Highly doubt that happens, even for someone of his great caliber. For humans, it's hard to find these defensive retreats, the knight moving to backwards, as Ivanchu classically said, and moving your piece back to a starting piece, because it just feels wrong for you to do that, right? I mean, you've played bishop f4, you're aiming for c7, you want to get active, but sometimes you just need to pull back a bit. But as chess progresses, we can see that players are starting to play more and more like this, looking at it more objectively thanks to engines. Not really sure how it's really nice that the engines in this case, but we're starting to see more themes like that. But in a blitz game of this nature, I don't think this would have happened, the bishop to c1. Anyway, Nepo goes queen to f5, and Carlsen goes bishop to e3. So perhaps also maybe just trying for a pawn thrust or preparation for a pawn thrust. Let's see what happens. Bishop to e3. Nepo drops back to c6. Bishop to c6. also a very crucial move because let's say he goes a6 here. Well, queen to b4 wins the game, funnily enough. Reason why? It's attacking this bishop on a4 as well as the knight on e7. So it's a double hit. You know, if you go here, for instance, well, you're just losing material. I think you could even take here. Yeah, it's fine either way, right? But the engine's suggesting c takes d. If rook takes d, rook takes c, you just go bishop takes c1, and you are up a nice piece. Bishop to b4 to b5. Well, you're attacking the queen, and you gain more mp. Just trade off pieces, and this is an easy win. You do not want to trade here as black. Well, the engine says you should, but I mean, this one white wins eyes closed. So we get bishop to e3, then bishop back to c6, and now rook to a3, trying to hit the pawn on a7 and opening up, perhaps asking Carlsen, Nepo, do you now want to trade queens? Nepo says no, thank you, sir. And here Carlsen, after bishop e4, finds the best move, queen to b2. Queen to b2 sidesteps this bishop attack. Let's see if what happened if queen to b3. Also fine, but better and strong as queen to b2. The fact that Carlsen sees this as the best move is insane. Because you could even try queen a1, right? But for whatever reason, Carlsen finds queen b2, which does seem the most natural move. But it's really hard to explain why not queen a1 or queen to b3 or queen to b4 even, right? So here, Nepo doesn't drop his bishop back to e to a8, which is the most important move in this position. Even bishop to b7 is fine here, but bishop b7 comes probably with c5. Let's see, bishop b7 probably gonna go, or you just take, yeah. Or, I was thinking here, but okay, not as nice. The reason why after rook to d7 this is lost is not because after f3 your bishop is trapped. No, that's not the issue. The main issue here, let's say it goes bishop a8 now, well, your queen is trapped. And this is something we spoke about earlier, that the queen looks very awkward on this a file, right? On the a5 square. Because now just a simple bishop to d3, where's your queen going to? Can't go anywhere on the fifth rank because let's say you go here, bishop takes. You go there, pawn takes. You go here, pawn takes. You go there, pawn takes. You go queen to b5, pawn takes. You go queen to a5, rook takes. Anywhere in this diagonal, the pawn takes or this pawn takes. So that queen does not look safe at all. You can't go to g6, bishop just captures. Can't go to f6, pawn just captures. So that's why it would be lost. So Nepo realizing his mistake after rook to d7, Carlsen just goes f3, and here Nepo decides to give up the piece. Bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3, Carlsen's up a piece, knight to g6, queen to c2. Carlsen now really just wants to trade, which he does on his terms, takes, and this is it now. Carlsen's traded queens in a favorable position in the endgame. This should be clearly, easily winning. Carlsen breaks in the center with d5. Nepo captures, Carlsen captures. Rook then to c5, and Carlsen says, oh no, thank you very much. You're giving me a free pawn with d takes e, f takes e. And now you could take, of course, on e6, but Carlsen plays the best move of bishop g4. Yeah, you could take, but Carlsen being Carlsen, an endgame genius, finds bishop g4, double attack here. You go queen to f7, king to f7, just a simple bishop to there, and you're losing everything. The house comes falling down. Then you'd be down a rook. So after bishop g4, Nepo goes rook to d2, and Carlsen just captures on e6, and it was in this position on move 36 then that Jan Nepomniachtchi resigned the game. And Carlsen then ended up going up 2-0 in this game. But then thereafter, Nepo produced a great comeback, leveling the scores at 2-2 after this match. Everyone thought, nah, Carlsen's going to win his 8th World Blitz title cleanly or clear, like only. But they ended up sharing it after Nepo came back miraculously and tied the score 2 each. They agreed then to share the World Blitz Championship, hence the thumbnail, best friends, right? But yeah, if you guys really liked this video, please do consider hitting that sub, comment, and liking. If you like me to, I could cover that game when Apple puts in his comeback. Just let me know in the comments, yeah? I want to thank you all for tuning in, guys. Your support means a lot. Let's get to 500 subs. We'll be pushing as the days go. We just reached 300, and I'm very grateful for each and every one of you. So, yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep growing. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.